It's fair.
It is what it is. It's a tough business, and sports are a pain in the butt, but I say pain in the butt. We are doing the G-rated.
We're doing the Disneyland version. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I'm doing fantastic.
I have absolutely zero complaints other than the amazing sport we call baseball not being able to make a deal. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Dan, I know you have strong opinions, especially about baseball. So I'm just gonna let you go real quick. Let you fly. You can be as animated as you like. Go for it, and tell us what you think.
Well, right. It's absolutely ridiculous that they can't actually close the deal at this point. I mean, you have Manfred saying that, 60 games is fine, but he just said now 70 games is impossible because of the COVID-19 second wave in the fall. That's an extremely specific bit of information. How does he know that 60 is fine, but 70 is impossible? It's like he says, how does he know any of this? You could do a lot of things. You can't have double headers because they'll be exposed more. What does he think players are going to do? It's like, oh, we're playing 2 games, so we're all going to start kissing each other or something. I don't know what. It's just crazy, and we never know if we have a deal or there's not a deal or they talked about a deal, and Tony Clark doesn't seem to quite know what's going on.
Oh, don't even get me started.
I think it's the facial hair. It's like he slept with something like on his chin and like a piece of like the filling of his pillow got stuck to it. That's kind of what his beard looks like. I don't know how I've seen 5-year-olds argue about something and actually come to a mutually beneficial arrangement. Like a friend of mine, he didn't want to share his raft when I was 5. I was 4, he was 5. I couldn't swim in the deep end yet. He didn't want to share the raft, but he was allowed to go to the deep end of the pool. So he'd go to the deep end. I said, well, if you let me use your raft, then I'll let you come and play my Atari. And we came to an agreement. He'd say, no, it's off the table.
My raft.
It's funny that you use that comparison, because last week on our show I actually made the comparison of it being 2 siblings arguing about ice cream.
Yep.
And the amount of sprinkles you get on the ice cream. So one is going to get a little bit more sprinkles, and then the other one's arguing that they want more sprinkles, and they keep going back and forth, and then guess what? The ice cream's going to melt, and then we're all screwed.
Yeah, it's just ice cream. You probably have enough sprinkles. It's okay.
Right. I don't know.
I think, see, the one kid thinks that I'm losing 640,000 sprinkles every time I have a spoonful of ice cream.
Well, and what I found very interesting, and actually, Dan, I would love to get your opinion on this, about how the owners are saying that they're going to lose this incredible amount of money. And not only that, after it somehow got released about the super lucrative amount of money that they signed with Turner recently, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head what it was, but I just remember it being astronomical. So I'm really trying to see both sides to this, but right now it's getting to that point where it's just 2 babies crying up, and it's bothering me. So
I mean, the players aren't always the best at expressing things to the press. Like Blake Snell saying, I'm not even going to bother to play for full salary. It's like, yeah, I understand the feeling, but you don't have to put it into those terms exactly like that to the public. You can be sensitive about people. I mean, yeah, we know you're the side that's not making up numbers, because it seems like nobody in baseball history has ever made money, yet every team seems to sell for a massive profit. I mean, the Marlins haven't had fans for 20 years. Jeff Loria, he bought the Marlins for 150-something million, and he sold it for 1.2 billion.
Magic.
And they didn't have any fans in 15 years. So how did any of that happen? You essentially made $100 million a year, not never ever making money, I'm skeptical about the whole thing. It's just a nightmare. It's just a shit show, I guess.
So,
Yeah.
Here's my other question. I'm sorry, MJ.
No, go for it.
So here's my other question. At the end of the day, I'll be honest with you. I actually think that there's going to be a deal done, and I'm guessing it's going to be around. It's going to be like 65.
Up with to the end, but they will do it in the most awkward way possible, the most self-damaging way possible, where they get the least benefit from it.
And I think that's a traditional thing for Major League Baseball.
And they announce these things sometimes. At least it wasn't like since there's no baseball, because like they announced A-Rod's opting out like during the World Series like 10 years ago, or whatever year that was. They the whole thing with the All-Star Game tie, the only All-Star game that people were watching. It just defies words sometimes how baseball is run. See, I did not like Bud Selig, and he was very happy to screw over the players at all times. But he also kind of did it. He also didn't destroy the sport itself.
He gave us a steroid era, baby.
Yeah, but Manfred wants like ghost runners and weird playoff formats where teams draft their opponents, and they want 16-team playoffs, which makes no sense in baseball compared to another sport. I don't know if Rob Manfred likes baseball. I mean, he's not one of the baseball people. He was brought in essentially as a labor lawyer. I just...
Exactly. So I actually found earlier this week, I was listening to a broadcast about how this particular announcer was talking about, a radio host, was talking about the suggestion of having Theo Epstein as the new Major League Baseball commissioner. And honestly, I don't think that that's a terrible idea. When you bring in a guy that's at 28 years old to the Red Sox, and he's able to what was 94-year curse, 96-year, whatever it was, I can't remember it off the top of my head. And see what he's done with the Cubs and see what he's done with that. I think that's a very interesting dynamic. So I almost think that Manfred might be on the hot seat a little bit from the owners.
Well, the thing is, most of the time, because the commissioner is essentially an employee of the owners, and he always has been. There's always been this kind of facade that the owner is the steward of the game, who's above it all. Like, no, he's paid his salary by the owners, and whoever pays your salary is your boss.
Right.
He represents the owner's interests, and that's direct. And the owners have always voted on the commissioner and picked the commissioner, usually from someone in their ranks or someone who's old and respected. But Manfred, of course, was Selig's chosen successor, and he was kind of forced down the owner's throats. It was actually not guaranteed that they were even going to vote to approve Manfred at the time. So I'm not sure if this goes south for the owners or goes badly or they look bad. I don't think they have any kind of particular loyalty to Manfred the same way they would have had to Selig in the same breath. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's not if he wasn't on the hot seat. I think I'd be surprised. I don't think he's been a good GM. Commissioner. He's probably the worst since Bowie Kuhn in the early '80s. It's just a mess, and just anytime baseball does something now, I just find myself speechless and just like stammering for words like I've done a couple times, because sometimes it just beggars the imagination. You don't know what they're doing or what they're thinking or who thought this was a good idea.
Well, what's interesting to me is the idea that you mentioned it. Manfred is like a labor lawyer. He was a New York City, I think, lawyer for like 20 years before he came to be the commissioner of baseball. And I really do agree. I don't think he likes baseball. I don't think he cares. At the end of the day, he, like you said, he's employed by the owners, and he's basically treating them like his clients. He's saying, I'm going to go to bat for the owners. I'm going to do whatever they want. Now, yes, Tony Clark and his player association statements don't really help anything, because I don't think that man knows how to write a statement that is either neutral or positive. It's basically just been, the owners are screwing us, we're not negotiating anymore, this is awful. I think that's what the owners are responding with. They're like, okay, you want to do that anytime we throw out a proposal? Here, we're only apart by 10 games. if you think about it, when they started, they were apart by like 60. It was like 50 to 114. And now they are 10 games apart. And they're still pissed off at each other. And they finally got into a room in Arizona together, it was reported. And they still can't even get their crap together. So I don't know what it's going to take. I've been hearing, Dan, I don't know what you have been hearing, but from what I've been told from a couple people, I'm hearing like 68 to 74 games. Now, I don't know how that would happen when the owners were so pissed off at 70, but eventually they're going to have to cave to somebody's going to have to cave to the pressure because the public is very upset right now. And at this point, they're pretty much pissed off at everyone.
Yeah, everyone's pissed, and it's a change of pace because most of the public tends to not take the player's side in labor disputes. I'm never quite sure why. That's the whole other thing we can talk about for hours. I don't know why you want. I mean, there's this idea that the players are taking the ticket prices, and if players made less, ticket prices would be free or cheap, or those free Final Four tickets you got and those free Rose Bowl tickets. Remember those?
Yeah.
I don't remember them, but since the players,
I was gonna say, where was that when I was looking?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Zion Williamson, he didn't make $20 million, so the tickets must be super cheap. But this has actually been a situation where the owners have done so bad that the fans aren't universally against the players this time, which is true. It's a change of pace. It's an interesting dynamic. I mean, I think they'll decide somewhere around 65 games. Nobody is obviously going to go on the record, but everyone in baseball that talks with front office people, the front office people are not happy with how this whole thing has taken place. I know at least several people in front office who I talked to back when baseball made that original revenue sharing proposal. They were horrified that they proposed that. There was no chance of that happening in a million years. It's like one told me, really, really deep off the record, so no names or anything, that's just about guaranteeing a strike this year if you do that. It's like, why would you?
The problem with that, though, is you can't strike because you're already contractually obligated.
It's a real mess because if he could use his force majeure clause, then they could declare there's no contract. And unfortunately, I'm not a lawyer like a lot of the baseball nerd people seem to be, so I don't have super insight there.
So, Dan, what do you think is going to happen? I know we've talked about this before, but now a couple months down the line, what do you think is going to happen to the next CBA, right? Because a lot of people are very split on this. Some people say, no matter what, as long as they can come to a deal this season and we get any type of season, that'll help in 2021 because now Tony Clark and Rob Manfred, everybody involved on both sides, they're more familiar with each other. They know how they negotiate. Hypothetically, if in 2021 they can all get into the same room, that'll be much better. Some people just say, no matter what, this has screwed everybody over. Everybody's mad at each other. So what is your opinion on that? What are we going to be looking at in 2021?
I think the next CBA it's obviously going to be contentious, but I'm not sure the familiarity is really going to mean anything because I think there's a pretty good chance that both Rob Manfred and Tony Clark are in their next jobs after this. And we have different people.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
I mean, if you're an owner, why would you keep Manfred after all this? Do you really think he's represented your interests well?
Not really.
And if you're a player,
my only argument. I'm sorry, Dan.
No worries.
My only argument to that though is last year they had their most lucrative year in history of baseball.
True, but no matter what happens at this point, I mean, they are going to lose money this year. That's not a question.
They already said that they had to borrow money, or I can't remember I can't remember the cost that it was, but a ridiculous amount of sum just to have operations right now.
Yeah. I mean, the $640,000 a game is complete bull, and everybody knows that because they didn't count national money, and they claimed that even before COVID, they projected like a $1.5 billion decline in revenue from their figures in 2019, which is of course absolutely ludicrous because none of the sources of this was before any question about the economy. The question is, they are going to lose money, but the question always was, why should the players take part of that? Because the owners were selling it as like, it's a partnership. They say, well, screw you. When was it a partnership when revenue was going up and our salaries were going down? Yeah. It's only a partnership when things are bad. I described it this way before. MLB is like the friend who wants you to help him move a couch from his apartment, and last week wouldn't spot you $5 for tip when you left your wallet at your house.
See, I was going to say he's a friend that doesn't give you a beer.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. a taco or beers, so that's
nothing wrong with that.
I respect that. So I mean, I agree. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't think anybody really knows what's gonna happen because it seems ridiculous to me and a lot of people who think about this logically. Although clearly this is not boiling down to logic right now. There's a lot more emotion involved than should be. But you would think you're 10 games apart. I don't know, just meet in the middle at that point. Because if you have 71 days is the season span we're looking at, 71 total days available for baseball. And I agree with what you said before, Dan. It's ridiculous that there's an idea that you can't have doubleheaders. Like, I don't understand. Doubleheaders are normal. They happen all the time when there's cancellations. Now, I understand if there's rainouts, that gets kind of messy if you're planning for like 70 games. But, I mean, I just don't understand why that 10 games is such a big gap that cannot be just split in the middle. I don't understand what the big difference is between 60 and 70.
Yeah, as I was saying with the doubleheaders, as I was talking about earlier, it's like, why does a longer game create closer contact? That's not how it works. It's not like in the second game you can tackle people for outs. It's the same game. You can still be 6 feet away from other people most of the time because baseball has it easier than other sports in this. They should be. Baseball is in essence kind of an individual sport that's like on the team level because most of the defensive plays aren't planned out the same way a play in football is planned out, obviously. It's all done, pretty much by rote. This happens, that happens. This happens, that happens. You have, everything's 90 feet apart. You have the defensive players aren't really interacting directly with each other, not with the runner, except tags, but it's not like you can't have baseball games. No one's getting tackled. There's no screens that you're continually blocking people. It should be pretty easy to have a doubleheader, and I think that a doubleheader would be easier than 2 games on separate days anyway. So, I don't know.
I mean, I 100% agree, and it could be a great opportunity to test out the mechanical or electronic strike zone too.
Yeah. I do that. I'm up with that social distancing.
Yes.
I prefer Angel Hernandez to not.
Oh no!
You're right.
I was gonna say,
Amen.
Or Joe West. No.
Amen. Dan,
someone had a great joke about Angel Hernandez. I wish it was one of those things. When someone does something on Twitter, you're like, I wish I had the smart enough to think about that. And Angel Hernandez was included and said that he had eavesdropped on a call. I don't know if you saw that report a month ago.
I said that.
And someone said that he still can't get a call right.
Yeah, I did see that.
I'm for robot ups. Bring in the balls and strikes. I think a computer can do that.
So here's a different aspect. So to go back to our conversation that we were just having about the operation standpoint with regards to having doubleheaders and whatnot. Here's kind of a different perspective. So from a building and grounds area, obviously, like you're familiar with Wrigley Field, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Wrigley Field, you have numerous bars, numerous areas for patrons to watch the game and whatnot, including people that just like to go to Wrigley Field because it's Wrigley Field. I think part of the consideration possibly, and you can call me an idiot, and I'm totally okay with it because I've been called worse.
Well, that'd be a really rude thing for a guest to do.
It's okay. I'll do it for you, Dan.
I'm calling you an idiot.
I'll do it for you, Dan.
I say that for like Murray Chess or just Murray Chess if you ever read Murray Chess.
But so what I was thinking though was like, say the Cubs are hosting the White Sox, or say the Cubs are hosting the Cardinals. People just want to be around that energy. They want to be there, while they may not be able to get into the field because of whatever parameters that they have set up during the if we have a season. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that part? Could it just be because they don't want to have crowds standing around outside Wrigley Field? I mean, because I think that might play a factor in their decision making as well.
It might. I'm not sure how huge a factor it is. Because I don't know if baseball's that popular anymore to have that kind of crowd. And also the question is, these people who are out and it's a doubleheader instead of a single header, what would they be doing anyway? Would they be going straight home and resuming social distancing? I mean, they're already out. Don't you think go to a different bar?
They're going to improve these bleachers.
I'm not sure what it has to do with it because I don't think Manfred actually considers that.
That's fair. And the only reason why I thought of it too, though, was because of the amount of money the Ricketts family has invested into the surrounding areas around Wrigley.
Yeah, it depends who the hardliners are. I don't know if the Ricketts are specifically the hardliners here. I think Artie Moreno is. I think Fisher in Oakland is. I suspect that Hal, or whichever the name of the surviving Steinbrenner kid is, it's Hal. Is it Hal? Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure either.
I forget sometimes. And I think like teams like I think the Reds are probably less. Because I hang around Cincinnati more since I'm in the area. I get the impression that they're less hardcore because people think that owners are just of one mind, and they're really not. They have 30 different interests among them, and they have 30 different things. A team like the Rays doesn't make a ton of money from fans anyway, so they're more concerned about having a season and getting that national money. I think really if MLB proposes something, it's solely because it benefits MLB. I doubt they're thinking of fans or players or really anything else, or even their owners.
Honestly, Dan, what do you think of the expanded playoff format?
I mean, it's fine this year. They want to fit more baseball in, and if it makes the baseball season happen, I'm for it.
Yeah.
I just hope it doesn't become a permanent feature because I said a 16-team playoff doesn't make a lot of sense in baseball because baseball teams are so close in ability.
Yeah.
And it's just a sport itself. There's so much luck involved. I mean, teams almost always win between 40 and 60% of their games. You always have a couple maybe below and a couple below. There's been seasons where nobody finished below 400 or above 600.
Yeah.
And an 8 seed in baseball has a much better shot than an 8 seed in the NBA does.
True.
It's not even close. And the question is how often do you want the 2020 Rangers to win the World Series?
No, I'm an A's fan, so no. But just in general, I don't want that.
I'm a Cubs fan. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a W flag right there. So
yeah, that's why he goes on rants about the Cubs.
My buddy Chris Dial, he has a Mets tattoo on his shoulder. I'm like, oh, the Mets. So you really want to put all in on the Mets, don't you?
Yikes. I mean, they were good the one year. Didn't they beat the Cubs in the DS one year? Yeah. Daniel Murphy.
They had their moments.
They had great pitching that series. Yeah, I remember that. Thanks for bringing it up, Dick.
My pleasure. I have to. Dan, as you can tell, any chance I get to troll Bruce or mess with him, I do, because in general, my sports teams are more successful than his. So.
Hey, journalists don't like to admit it, but at least half the job is trolling somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm totally okay with it.
I mean, you're trolling people in power. You're trolling people with authority, but you're trolling on some level. You're asking people questions or telling people things they don't want to hear. So I admit it and I embrace it. And I try not to be too trolly of Twitter.
And a lot of the time, we ask questions that we already know the answer to, and that's part of the fun. Is just hearing the answer that we already know is coming.
Well, see, that's what a lawyer will tell you. Never ask a question you don't already know the answer to.
True, and that it's very clear from that I've watched way too many law shows.
or your wife. You never ask the questions.
No, my grandfather was a lawyer for his whole life. He graduated Brooklyn Law School in '31, I believe, and he loved watching Law and Order. The reruns they had 12 hours a day. I mean, obviously before he died, and I'd ask him hey, these are reruns. You've probably seen them before, and he'd say, well, I'm a little senile, so I never remembered the show. It's always the first time for me. I'm like, oh, I guess it works out that way.
That's awesome. Well, I believe that's all we have for you today, Dan. Thank you very much for coming on here live. I know I've had you on the podcast before. It is always a pleasure, so thank you for coming in, talking about the soap opera that is Major League Baseball.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Hopefully next time I have my stupid webcam. I actually ordered this replacement webcam because one of my laptops broke. I ordered it in April, like at the start of April.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm still waiting for it. They're like, it's like being shipped from Singapore directly. I don't know what they're doing, but
it was the whole. Everyone was probably ordering it because of the whole COVID-19 stuff, Dan.
Yeah, but I haven't had one, and so I just have a blank screen. But anyway, you guys have a good one.
Thanks, Dan. So
thank you very much, Dan. Perfect.
Good stuff with Dan.
I love Dan. He's fantastic. Like I said, I haven't had him on the podcast. He's really fun.
No joke. I could probably talk to that guy like for the rest of the show.
Absolutely.
It should be Dan and Bruce. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Bruce, I have the power to kick you from here right now.
Hey, you took a shot at me. I had to do it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So, real quick, before we get to the bubble, which anybody listening to this should know what that is, but if they don't, go Google it. Do you want to hear my full team?
Ooh.
My startup draft team.
All right. So to the people that are watching that are new, real quick, if there are new people watching.
Yes. Well, I mean, YouTube, somebody might find it.
Fair. MJ was talking to me about I want to say fantasy lineup or fantasy team. Basically, if you wiped every single NFL team and you had to redraft everybody, him and fellow writers, I want to say, MJ, correct me if I'm wrong, him and fellow writers decided to do it, and honestly, MJ's team is ridiculous, and I was very impressed by his draft. Would I have done something different? Maybe. However, when I heard some of the draft picks that were done by his, real quick, rewind that. I would not have drafted Aaron Rodgers. However, where he got Aaron Rodgers, that's what I would have done. I agree with that. But hearing some of his fellow writers, I very much encouraged him, and MJ, I'm encouraging you again. Please do a fantasy league with them. So, I'm sorry, I don't lead into what was going on. So, continue with the rest of your team.
So, like you said, starting quarterback Aaron Rodgers, I got him 12th overall, which I was surprised about. But I think the reason he fell to 12 is because some people have different draft strategies. So there are some people who are going win now. That is clearly myself, because I have some old people on my team. But there are some people who are going, they want to win in 3 to 5 years. Old. Yeah. Bruce's age, basically.
From a sports perspective.
Yes. Right? Which means you are past your prime, but it's okay. I'm sorry, ads. Okay. I'm done. I promise. I promise I'm done. So, I got Rodgers at 12 for my starting quarterback. Backup quarterback, I have Jacoby Brissett.
I love that.
Which I love because I'm the New England Patriots. I forgot to mention that. So I'm the New England Patriots.
I don't love that, but
no, but that's just the team I got. And I like it because I'm also going to write an article about it. I'm probably going to do a video about it, stuff like that. So with the content I'm going to create.
And I'm going to interrupt you again real quick because neither one of us said you get that coaching staff, just so you guys
Correct.
know.
So I have Bill Belichick.
He gets the New England Patriots.
Yes. Yeah, so I have Bill Belichick. I have Josh McDaniels. So with that in mind, Jacoby Brissett has been in that system before. And with Aaron Rodgers' slight injury history, he's also older. Who knows how long he'd actually want to stay in New England. He might get pissed off. Who knows? So with all of that, I mean, I'm a Packers fan. I'll roast him. With all of that,
this team right here.
Okay, go for it. He'll suck by the time he gets there.
Next year?
You really? Okay,
no,
that's for a different day. That's a debate for a different day. Okay, but I got Jacoby Brissett. He did pretty well last year in Indianapolis, but he really didn't have that many weapons, in my opinion. T.Y. Hilton was hurt for a lot of the year. Didn't really have a fantastic tight end. Their running back Mack is good, but he's not a star type. He's not a star running back. So with the cast I have created, I think if you plug Jacoby Brissett in, I still might make the playoffs. So I got him very recently. I got him, I'm trying to look here, pretty late in the draft. I'm thinking like round 20, 21. So it was pretty much once my entire roster was filled out, I got Jacoby Brissett. So I'm happy with that. So then at running back, Derrick Henry, who was arguably the best.
I love that.
He was arguably the best running back in the NFL last year.
He's a crook. That guy is a stud.
And then at backup running back, we've got Jalen Samuels, who you probably don't know. He's second year for the Steelers. He's my pass catching running back, third down back.
The only reason why I know who that is because I had a lot of injury issues on my fantasy team, and I actually did pick him up 1 week.
Okay, well then, Bruce, that's impressive, because I did not know who he was before this. I'm doing my research pretty much every time I have to pick. I just go research.
He has one good game, and I cut him.
That sounds about right. So yeah, he's my pass catching running back, third down back, stuff like that. So then at wide receiver, you're gonna love the third wide receiver I got too. You already know the first two, but
Allen Robinson?
No, he was long gone, and I wouldn't draft him anyway. So my top two receivers on the outside, we got Adam Thielen and T.Y. Hilton.
Love it. We talked about it last week. I love
Fantastic.
that.
Then for my slot, I got Jamison Crowder.
That's awesome. Who are you playing with?
I don't know. These people they put so much value on offensive linemen and defense. Your
skill positions are ridiculous.
And then to round out my skill positions, Travis Kelce.
Right, I forgot about that.
Yup.
So here's my question to you, and
yes.
and I refresh my memory on this, please.
Yeah.
You guys are doing Madden simulations too for it?
Yeah, some of us are, yes.
That's pretty awesome.
My offense is going to score so many points, it's ridiculous.
Alright, so you're a Packer fan. It is what it is. I don't hold that against you. I'm a Bears fan. I love defense. That's the only thing that I've been able to hang my hat on for 35 years.
Yes.
So that being said, let's hear that defense.
Okay, so my three corners, I have Desmond Trufant, Bradley Roby, and in the 22nd round, I got Eli Apple.
Interesting. He's okay. He's been around a lot. He's been jumping around to different teams a lot, though.
But he's 24 years old, and he was a first-round draft pick.
He was.
He's extremely talented. And
he'd be a great slot corner.
Exactly. You got Trufant and Roby on the outside.
A little nickel action.
Exactly. And then my two safeties, I got Landon Collins and Trey Flowers.
Where'd you have Flowers? Flowers is a little old, isn't he?
He's like 24.
I didn't think he was older.
I think. Here, hold up. I'm pretty sure Trey Flowers is really young. There's two Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers is 25 years old. He plays for the Seahawks.
I like how we're both we're only pausing our
Yeah. Last year he had 3 picks, 82 tackles, and 2 sacks. And he's 25 years old.
Nice. Oh yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at the other one. And he's not even that old. Why did I think he was older?
I have no idea. Anyway. You're going crazy. So yeah, those are my defensive backs. My defensive backs are fantastic. Then
who got Khalil Mack?
That's a great question.
Oh, you don't have to answer that.
I have the doc pulled up.
I was hoping you'd be like I did, but
Redskins. That was their first pick. Was Khalil Mack. Yeah, I wouldn't take Khalil Mack first overall, but that's just me. Okay.
It's also he was rated number 4, 5, 6 in NBA, the best player or NFL. Sorry, I just looked up to my
number
TV
6 in the NBA. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, for my linebackers, I've got Jamie Collins.
Okay.
So I have both Collins. I have Devondre Campbell, who's young. He was top 5 in the NFL in tackles last year. I got him 16, 18, something like that. I got him late. And he was at least top 10, if not top 5 in the NFL in tackles last year. And then I forget his first name, but his last name is Agba. I don't know if you've heard of him. So then, for linemen, I've got Robert Quinn, Kyle Fackrell, who I really like. Kyle Fackrell. He's a Packer. He in 2018, before the Smith brothers showed up, for 2 straight years, 17-18, he had 10 plus sacks. And then he's very undervalued because last year Preston and Zadarius Smith were in Green Bay, and so he wasn't getting edge rushing opportunities. He was playing interior.
So I have a question for you, by the way.
Yes.
I can't recall this. Do the Patriots play a 4-3 or a 3-4?
Depends on the year. It depends on the talent they have. They don't have a consistent system.
Really?
That's why I didn't care about my draft.
Who was their D coordinator? I don't even remember who that is.
Well, Belichick does more with defense. It used to be Patricia. That's why, like, it basically changes every year. Patriots defensive coordinator.
Or Greg Schiano?
Yeah. I think that sounds right.
Greg Schiano.
Wait, why is this giving me Matt Patricia? He's not their defensive coordinator anymore. Oh, they still don't have... Hold up. I don't know if they have an official defensive coordinator yet. It is... No, Schiano left.
Did he really?
They don't have a defensive coordinator. Hold on, what does their official website say?
No, you're right. No, they don't.
Yeah.
I think Belichick is the calls the
default. Yeah. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's why I don't really care, because Bill Belichick can turn anything into anything. So I wasn't really drafting for a system. A lot of guys were. I had a lot more freedom, but I also have Landon Collins. So my theory was Landon Collins. I can basically drop him down, and he can play in the box as a linebacker. Devondre Campbell gets so many. Devondre Campbell and Jamie Collins get so many tackles normally that they kind of function as edge rushers. Realistically, Devondre Campbell plays more middle linebacker, but also I think it's Emmanuel Agba. Let me see. Yeah, it's Emmanuel Agba. He also does a lot of rushing. So I was trying to get guys that can play a lot of linebacker / edge, and then I got 2 defensive tackles, Daquan Jones, and I just picked Tyson Alalu.
No idea.
He's 6'6", 305 pounds. So he's just a big boy to sit in the middle.
Big boy, dude.
Exactly.
He's a big boy.
He is a big man. So I figure I sit him right at nose tackle. I can do however many linemen / edge rushers I want to. It doesn't really matter, because if they decide they actually can pass, then I have some of the best safeties. I mean, Trey Flowers and Landon Collins are amazing. And then I have 3 pretty good corners. And Eli Apple will be able to learn in a system that created the best corner in the league right now. So, I mean, I'm pretty confident with that.
It's not bad.
And then I got J.C. Treader at center, too, to reunite with Aaron Rodgers. So that'll make him happy. I like my team.
My first thought when you said that, though, was it was just an ass that Aaron Rodgers knows.
I mean, you're not wrong. That's basically how football works.
Honestly, like, it's a solid team.
Yeah.
Solid team.
I'm happy with it. And especially, I mean, the fact that I went offense with my first 6 picks. And that's the defense that I have.
Yeah.
Because I went offense, I mean, even 7 of my first 11 were offense. And I got Kyle Fackrell late, got DeAndre Campbell late, got Eli Apple late.
I'm a huge fan of Eli Apple draft.
Yeah. And normally, no, I wouldn't have picked him earlier, but he fell so far. I think a lot of people just forgot about him. Because you got to remember, it's not like when you're drafting on ESPN with fantasy football where they have all the players. We're just doing this off the top of our heads. I mean, obviously, you have all the databases online and stuff, but you have to look up the right thing for it to produce Eli Apple. Because he's not going to be at the top of tackles. He's not going to be at the top of picks or anything. And because he didn't even play that much in New Orleans last year. For some reason, the Giants wanted to get rid of him really fast. And then last year, New Orleans has a decent defensive back room, so he didn't play that much. But you slot him in as the third corner, the slot. He gets to learn behind Desmond Trufant and Bradley Roby. Once Trufant retires, he and Roby can run the show for a couple years. Then you draft someone to run with. Like, it's not that hard to keep that going.
I love the enthusiasm that you're producing behind this.
Oh yeah, and then we might also do a rookie draft next year with these teams.
That's kind of cool.
And then kind of like keep it going if we can. I think that would be a lot of fun. And then what we really want to do, we really want to figure out a system. And I did this before when I was younger. A way to do our own free agency.
It's not bad, actually.
Because otherwise, if you think about it, free agency is going to happen. And how do we assign those guys? Because the teams are completely different. So a guy that decides to go to the Packers wouldn't decide to go to the Packers because Rodgers isn't there. And half the team, it would be completely different. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. When I was in 8th grade. Shut up. Smooth jazz. Shut up.
Smooth jazz.
Shut up. So when I was in 8th grade, I created this thing. I was on the A's SB Nation website, right? And I created this thing where we had very similar 32 guys. We did an entire MLB offseason. So, complete with trades, draft, everything. It worked. It was really ratchet.
It was really ratchet.
It was, because I was running it, and I was in 8th grade, and I had an iPad. So I was running this league, and I was running the free agency, and all of the trades had to go through me. I was running all of this off an iPad.
So you were the commissioner,
yes,
Mr. Bakerhead.
Correct. So how that worked is trades just had to be decided. I could veto any trade, but obviously I had to have reasoning and stuff for it. I did not run a team. I ran the entire thing, so I didn't have any interest in, if I wanted to make a trade for that guy, I wouldn't veto it because I wanted him. So I don't know how all of that would work because everybody in here right now, the 2 guys running it, also have teams. So I don't know how that would work. But for free agency, they just submitted bids to me. And at the end of the day, I would decide, I think it was the Albert Pujols offseason. The offseason he went to the Angels, I want to say. I don't remember. I think that was the year that I did this. And so I might have been younger than 8th grade. I don't remember. I just remember I was young I was doing this with 31 grown men, basically. And I was running this. I mean, nobody knew. I don't know if they were grown men. I don't know. They were just emails. To me, they were just emails. I still have some of them. A couple of them have popped up on LinkedIn and stuff. Because I have their emails on my contacts. It is weird. I've connected with some of them. Some of them are very nice gentlemen. Side note. But, yeah, so, we would pick...
I'm glad to hear they're very nice.
Yes. So we would pick 10 guys or so on a given day, and they would be the free agents for the day. So from the morning till midnight, that was what everybody had to submit their bids, and then I would keep updating what the top bid was. Yeah. But I was in the mind of the player, so basically I got to decide where they went.
Yeah, cool.
It was really cool, and it was a lot of fun. So hopefully we can do something like that, because otherwise I don't know how continuing this would work.
So what I used to do, now you want to hear ratchet?
Yes.
So what I used to do is before I even knew about fantasy sports, before I knew about any of that stuff, I was super young. My brother-in-law would actually, we would take rosters from, now this is not baseball, this is related to more NBA. We would go to NBA Live 95, I want to say, 94. Okay. And we would take the rosters from each team, write them down, and then we would fold them up, or we would cut it out, fold them in little pieces of paper, put them in a hat, no joke, and we would just go in and we would take them out of a hat, and then we would read it off and be like, oh dude, I got Akeem Olajuwon, he's gonna be my center, and then oh dude, I got Hoops McGee, and he's gonna ride the bench. So it was honestly it was before I even knew about fantasy sports or anything like that. It was kind of cool because then we would end up trying to make a roster of it. Yeah. And then we would we would just mess around, and it was the first time I've ever been introduced to some aspect of that. But we were doing it on pieces of paper and a hat.
Right. And now I have massive Google spreadsheets that have all of this information. I mean, we have a spreadsheet with all of the participants, so everybody, their Twitter handle and the team that they have. We have the entire draft order, which has, how many picks are we at now? It's ridiculous. I'm still scrolling. We are currently on pick 807. So we've been doing this for a week. 800 picks in a week. And then there's also every single person and their entire team listed out in order of their draft. And then, yeah, it's ridiculous. And then we also have a massive board that is kind of also another list of, like, people who've been drafted. And it's crazy. Because, yeah, you couldn't have done this, well, especially in 1994.
I was 10, dude. I was 10. Anything could have happened.
Okay.
So here, now, let's I mean, we've gone a really long tangent here. So let's, like, turn this bad boy
real quick.
So that said, real quick. So I'm gonna skip over a portion of what we were gonna talk about and just jump right into it since we're talking about the NFL. Nick Fauci today proposed a thing saying that NFL teams need to have a similar thing that the NBA does as the bubble. So, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to elaborate more on our thoughts on the NBA bubble.
Yeah.
However, I think we can talk a little bit about the NFL and what they're proposing and how Nick Fauci totally thinks, or Dr. Fauci, we'll go doctor. I think his name's Nick, but we'll say doctor.
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci is against the thought process of possibly having games in actual cities. So, MJ, I actually want your opinion on this, bro.
Yes.
What do you think about this, man? I don't think it could happen, but what do you think? You think they could have a bubble city for the NFL?
It cannot happen, and it won't happen because the NFL doesn't care. The NFL is the biggest business in the entire country. Probably, if you want to look at the power they have, the political power they have, I mean, if you just look at the outrage across the country when something like the Colin Kaepernick situation happens, or things related to that, just the amount of power and pull that the NFL has, I mean, the only way that they will not function at full capacity, and by full capacity I mean butts in seats, fans in the stadium, the only way that that will not happen is if there is extreme public outrage. And I mean, to the amount of Colin Kaepernick level, will be the only way that the NFL will make a change. Or they get threatened with lawful action. But even then, I don't think we understand how much money the NFL has. I don't think we understand how much legal power the NFL has. Because I honestly believe that at some point in the last 4 or 5 years, Colin Kaepernick would have had a job if they didn't have so much power. Now, if we look at now, I don't know if at this point, I don't know if he's a quality enough quarterback. I mean, it's hard to know because we haven't seen him on the field in so long. But if you look at how powerful those owners are, we think the owners in the MLB are focused on money. We have no idea what the owners in the NFL are willing to do for money. And so until...
You're not wrong on that, I should say.
Basically, until the government tells them you cannot have... And that's what they're planning on. Roger Goodell has said that publicly. We're planning on having 100% full stadiums until we get told otherwise. And you know what? There are plenty of people in this country that will say, screw social distancing. They will go to those games.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I think, from what I recall, I don't know off the top of my head who he is. I got to start doing more research.
It's okay.
But the Miami Dolphins owner already made a comment saying that he was totally committed to doing 50% capacity at their stadium.
Yeah. And it's Stephen Ross, by the way.
So let's bring it more local. So Soldier Field is the smallest NFL stadium in NFL. The smallest stadium in NFL. So that said, from the monetary aspect that you were talking about, I don't think that the owners want to go into a situation where you're playing games without fans. Even at like 25, 30, 45, 50% capacity, I don't think that they want to do that. They don't.
Because at that point, I mean, if if you've got 25%, the owner's reasoning is why not just go full at that point? I mean, I know you could still technically social distance to a point, but the amount of effort that would have to go in, I mean, because you've been to games at Soldier Field or Wrigley, and there's no idea of social distancing when you're funneling everybody in. They just don't have the space needed. You'd have to break down like very large spaces of walls if you want to social distance people coming into the stadium, or you have to require everyone to wear a mask, which, as we've said, with the type of people that go to NFL games, that's not going to go very well. And then once you get people drunk, exactly, that's not going to go very well once they're drinking blue Gatorade throughout the entire game. So,
hey, don't hate on my blue beer. People are gonna ask what this is. I know it. I know people are gonna be like, "What is he drinking?"
He's drinking the Kool-Aid.
I am the Chicago Bears Kool-Aid.
Exactly. So, if you realistically think that you're gonna let 25% of the people into the stadium, they're not all gonna go down to as far down as they because if you want 25%, you're gonna fill the entire stadium throughout everywhere. You really think those people aren't gonna move down when there's so many empty seats? That is completely unrealistic. The amount of security.
Guaranteed rate field.
Exactly.
I'm guilty of it.
Everybody does it. It's human nature. If you see a seat open and it's open for a long time, it's kind of dumb not to go down there. Like, if nobody stops you, go for it. So the amount of security that's going to be involved in that, the amount of extra, like, yes, realistically, if they had 25%, they might be able to break even. The 25% with concessions and everything, maybe raise the ticket prices a little bit. But then when you take into account all of the extra measures that they would need to make it truly safe, we're talking about no risk at all. It is physically impossible. It's not going to happen. And so we will either have no season, or it's going to be full. I don't see an in between.
So, I will disagree with you on that aspect. I think there's going to be an in between. There has to be. The only reason why is because the NFL is partnered with maybe not anymore. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe the NFL. I know some professional organization is partnered with the secondary market with ticketing.
Okay.
And because of that, if say somebody gets a ticket, so if I get a ticket to a Bears Packers game, at Soldier Field, it's already limited. It's already a smaller area for you to watch a game if you didn't have full capacity.
Right.
It's smaller than Lambeau.
Yes.
So that being said, say you want to go.
Yeah.
And say that like this could be. I'm making like this is totally like me like coming out of like random ass area. People are gonna pay more for seeing Aaron Rodgers wanting to like say after like some controversial stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Blah blah. On the secondary market, they're always gonna pay more. So I'm sure that there is a way for the NFL owners, whomever else, to make money off of, or at least make enough money for them to not only operate, but for them to profit off of the situation that we're currently in. Secondary market's always large. We all know this. We've seen it multiple times in sports. You can have face value of a ticket for like $40 and say like that's the Aaron Rodgers says that he's going to like leave the Packers, and you're gonna be like, you would come up to me and be like, Coach Bruce, hey man, I'm a huge Packer fan, and I see that you got that last ticket for the Bears Packers game, and I'll say to you, MJ, you know what? For this ticket, I would sell it to a normal Packers fan for $100, even though I only paid $40. But I'm gonna say to you, MJ, because I like
I'll give it to you for $80.
I'll give it. Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I know you were.
Well, right. So, but that's what I'm saying. So, I think StubHub and that's not a plug. I shouldn't even cite it, but whatever. StubHub or whatever secondary market that you're deciding to sell tickets on, you can profit off of it. And I think the NFL, I'm sure there's somebody way smarter than I am that has already thought of this.
So what? If you go at 50% capacity, you're just going to double ticket prices?
Yeah, right. Not face value, but you're going to do it on the secondary market.
So then nobody's going to use the secondary market if they figure that out.
You don't think so? Because if the tickets get swallowed up right away by the box office or Ticketmaster or whatever you choose to get.
They're going to have to. They would have to intentionally do that, and then they would probably get into legal trouble.
If it hasn't happened already.
I mean,
not the legal trouble.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that just gets really messy, and that's a lot of unnecessary work for NFL ownership, whereas they could just open up their stadium. And the problem is going to be, let's say, because realistically, the NFL has to make a widespread decision, right? They can't have it, because right now, if you want to play a football game in Texas, you could fill 50% of AT&T Stadium, and that's the law. So what's going to happen is right now in California, you can't have any fans. And so you really
that's the
think...
problem, too.
Right. So what's going to be the problem is either the NFL has to say whatever the bottom bar is, that has to apply to every stadium. Because otherwise you're going to get the Rams and Chargers pissed off that the Cowboys are making money and they're losing money because they can't have fans and the Cowboys have. So either you have to go bottom line with what is the lowest regulation in any state that has an NFL team, or there are two other options. You can go to the neutral site bubble, which isn't going to happen because there's nowhere with enough space to satisfy the schedule of 30 NFL teams, or you have to go where screw state regulations, we're just going to fill everything and the government can go screw themselves. And so I see that last option as most likely out of the three.
That's interesting. It's actually interesting you think that too. And I'm not disagreeing with you by any means. Well, I'm not. It's just it's a the argument that would be made by the NFL Players Association, or if that's even what it is, is it would be a competitive disadvantage for a team to be coming from Texas going to California.
Yeah, and it would be a competitive disadvantage if the Kansas City Chiefs have full capacity in that crazy stadium, and then the Seahawks don't.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's either all or nothing, and I don't see an in between. And that's just the way I'm looking at it. But unfortunately, we are out of time because we've gone in a lot of tangents today. But it was a lot of fun, Bruce. So as always, thank you again. Next week we might have Michael Rothstein on the show.
Ooh.
Hopefully.
Dropping a little salt.
Yes. Hopefully, assuming his travel schedule lines up, we should be able to do that. So I'll let you know. I'll let everybody else know. And thank you for watching.
I'll let everybody else know on my page.
Exactly. Exactly. So thank you as always, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys. Take care. MJ, thank you.